What does gutsy mean to you?
Oh, what a great word. Gutsy is just a badass way of saying courage. Really? It really is. What a great word because we need to find courage, but to find courage, we need to be gutsy. And gutsy means taking that next step in whatever journey you are on.
Welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, the show where you learn how to own what you actually want and shift the mind junk that's been holding you back. I'm LauraAura, keynote speaker, coach, and your guide to help you get clarity, build confidence, and make the gutsy moves that change your life. Each week, I'm going to help you simplify things by teaching you how to get out of your head while stepping into action. This way you can achieve all those life shifts that you've been overthinking. Your desire, that drives you. But gutsy, that's what gets it done. What if fear and excitement were actually the same feeling, just interpreted differently? And what if you could train yourself to turn that fear into fun? Today, I'm sitting down with extreme sports athlete and mindset coach Jennie Milton, also known as AdrenaJen, to dive into the power of expanding your comfort zone, building resilience, and staying calm under pressure. If you're facing a big transition, stepping into something new, or feeling stuck in fear, this episode will give you the mindset shifts that you need to make your next gutsy move with confidence. Jennie Milton, also known as AdrenaJen, is a fearless extreme sports athlete, champion snowkiter, and kite surfing icon who has turned her passion for adventure into a mission of empowerment. As an Australian kite surfing champion and globally ranked snow kite champion, she's no stranger to pushing limits, whether it's riding in Alaska's backcountry, surviving avalanches, or escaping polar bears. Jennie now helps women conquer fear and build confidence through her snow kiting camps and keynote talks. Her powerful formula, the fear formula, which we go over today, by the way, teaches people how to stay calm under pressure and take bold action in life, from corporate teams to women over 40 making big life changes. Jennie is on a mission, my friend, and she's helping people dream big, face their fears, and live life to the fullest with her motto, Ready, Mindset, Go. One of the things that you're going to hear Jennie talk about several times, and for very good reason, is the power of community. Having people to talk to, someone to turn to, someone to bounce ideas off of, to help pick you up when you're feeling down, and to celebrate your wins when you achieve them. This, my friend, is the foundation of why the Gutsy Collective exists. Every day I talk to women that say, I don't have anybody outside of my husband or wife to talk to about these things. My friend circle doesn't really understand what I'm doing, and therefore they don't really know how to guide or to push me. And I really want to do the work and move forward. I just don't know how. As a member of the Gutsy Collective, all of those challenges disappear in an instant. Each week, women are doing the things that they have talked themselves out of for years and sometimes decades. And they have the people to turn to as they're doing it. It's your turn, my friend. You deserve the community, the support, and the know-how so that you can move forward and make those gutsy moves. Go to LauraAura.com and click on the Gutsy Collective and join today. Women often say, I wish I would have joined this sooner because I could have saved myself a lot of time and agony. All right, my friend, you're in for a real treat. Listen, Jennie just has this glowing energy that always makes me smile from ear to ear. So let's get into today's episode. AdrenaJen, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast, my friend.
Hello, LauraAura. I'm so excited to be here to chat with you and your audience today. This is awesome.
Oh my gosh. Listen, every time I am in your world, I just get this surge of energy. You're just happy and optimistic and adventurous. And right now you're currently in Alaska because you're teaching and you're up there on holiday and you're just like embracing this beautiful nature. And I just adore you. So I appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's quite the contrast having you in your tank top there with your bare skin showing, and me being here in Alaska with my puffy down jacket and beanie on, trying to stay warm. And you might see my background of a glacial ice cave there. And seriously, that is in my backyard, and that's about the temperature it is here right now.
It's funny. You were like, oh, it's not too bad. It's 19 today. And I'm like, only 19. Like, like that's a warm day for you. It's we were chatting a little bit before we started to record about getting out of our comfort zones and how you're doing that every morning. You're living the RV life when you're in Alaska for a couple months at a time. And you share that you turn the heat off every night so that you're not burning through resources. And so you're waking up uncomfortable every single day. I mean, what a perfect start to this conversation today.
If you see me from the outside or you see my photos, you're going to see this, 28-foot motorhome with the slide out. It's very fancy, but we call it glamping because it is just glamorous camping, really. It's about the same temperature as a tent in here in the mornings when we wake up. But I've been doing the RV life for boy, about 23 years up here in Alaska, and you learn very quickly that if you keep the heat on all night, a few things are going to happen. One, you're going to run out of propane, and then you're going to need to drive, possibly an hour to town and fill up with propane, which is about 3 times the price up here in Alaska as it is in the lower 48. You're going to have
Wow.
a flat battery because the heater has a fan that runs. And so having a flat battery, again, that's a big problem in the mornings. But the other thing is that if you enjoy going outside and adventuring in the cold and the mountains, it's much easier if it's a closer temperature on the inside where you sleep. If it was really warm in here, then when I went outside, there would be a contrast of the cold and I would feel the cold a lot more. And so, we were talking about comfort zone and how it's really important to be able to go outside our comfort zone. And if we talk about that literally in terms of temperature, it's a bit of a trap. People get cold and they turn on the heater. They get hot, they turn on an air conditioner. And most people in this world are living in a very narrow temperature range. And when you go outside that comfort zone of your temperature, it affects you. Whereas if we can try and expand that comfort zone so that we're comfortable in colder temperatures, and I do the same on the hot end. I go back to Australia and visit my parents, and it is hot there, and I'm just as comfortable in the hot weather as well. So my personal temperature comfort zone is huge, and it means that I can be happy and energetic, and I'm not being bothered if the temperature is hot or cold.
I think that there's a really interesting moral of the story in that, right? And how expanding ourselves, getting out of our comfort zone and building a tolerance for things outside of our norm helps you to actually really expand in new ways. Is that kind of what you're experiencing with this?
I love that word tolerance as well because that's exactly what it is, having a tolerance to doing something different, having a fear tolerance, a temperature tolerance, a risk tolerance. These are all things that I get to experience in my life and that I encourage other people to do in their lives.
So tell me a little bit about, because today we're talking about, finding calm in the chaos, right? Like when things start to stack up on you, you start to feel the pressure, things are shifting in your life. How do we start to stay calm in that process? Tell me a little bit about your experience with that, because I'm certain if you're teaching this, you have your own story of it.
Now, staying calm when we are fearful or when we've got high pressure situations is really important, and that's something that I have learned over the years being an extreme sports athlete. I've been into lots of different sports in my life. I grew up skiing. I've been skiing since I was 2, and for all of you who can hear my accent, I am from Australia, and yes, we have snow in Australia, and in fact fact, my brother and I are so blessed that we learned to ski when we were 2 or 3. My mum and dad actually had a sports store and a ski shop. They would sell ski gear in the wintertime, and then in the summertime they would have other sports like skateboards and rollerblades and windsurfers. So I have grown up in this incredible world of doing sport. And that teaches us a lot about being calm, especially as we start progressing in our sports. Now, skiing is such an excellent sport to teach us how to build our courage. And as we learn the skills, when you go to a ski resort, you're going to start off on the green runs, and the green runs aren't very steep, and that's where we're going to start. And we're still scared when we're starting, and we have to learn how to use our edges and how to control our speed. And then once we can control our speed, we go up to the blue runs, and they get a little bit steeper, and we need to learn how to stop, and we need how to learn how to turn. And then when we're ready, we go up to the black runs. And once again, we're outside our comfort zone, and the black runs are scary. But as we start to put our skills and we build our courage into play, it becomes fun and comfortable. Then we go up to the double black diamonds. And then what I did was I dreamt about going to Alaska, where the mountains are pointy and steep. And that's where we're really taking it to the next level in terms of skills and finding our courage and finding our calm. Because I remember the first time I came up here, and you get in the helicopter and it's all very exciting, and my adrenaline is flowing, and we take off, and you're just looking out the window at all these incredible mountains. I mean, it's majestic, it's magical, it's a winter wonderland. And then the helicopter lands on top of the peak, and you're exciting, and you're doing what you've been trained to do, get out of the helicopter without bumping the seat of the pilot. And you get out, and then the guide grabs all your gear and puts it in a pile, and you lean over it, and you're taught to look at the helicopter as it takes off, and it takes off, and it blows snow in your face. It's all very exciting. And then all of a sudden, you are standing on top of this mountain, and it becomes quiet, and it becomes very calm, and you're just looking around, and it's the most incredible feeling of success. I mean, even in business and life, we're always, figuratively climbing mountains. And when you get to the top of that mountain, and you're standing there, and you've made it, it's quite an incredible feeling. And I think that's the feeling we need to crave, the feeling we need to get addicted to, so that we are aiming for that feeling of standing on top of our summit, achieving our goals, rather than the feeling of when we're down the bottom and we've got a long way to go, and we're trying to get to the top, and we're hitting barriers, we're feeling fear. But when we get to the top, boy, that is the amazing feeling that we feel. Now, with skiing, that's not the end of the road. When you get to the top, you still got to get down. And I always say, be careful what we wish for, because it might just happen. And so visualizing that was something I'd done, but it wasn't until I really got there that I understood what it felt like. And all of a sudden, it went from calm and looking around at these mountains to fear. And when we feel fear in life, whether it's doing something that's literally dangerous, like skiing a big mountain in Alaska, or whether it's going live on social media or speaking on a stage, whether it's starting a new business or a relationship, we all feel those fears. And it's natural for our body to go into that primal fear response. We all have a natural response. Have a think about it. Are you the person that gets angry and wants to fight the situation? Or are you the person like me that wants to run away, and they call it flight, wanting to just get out of the situation? Or are you the person that just freezes, and you can't move forwards or backwards or anything? And For me, it's normally a flight response. And but I couldn't use flight in this particular situation. Remember, I'm on top of a mountain, the helicopter's gone. There's no other way to get down except to ride down. And back then I was riding a snowboard, and I hadn't had a lot of big mountain experience. And the guide said, okay, he put us in an order, and he was going to go down first and go down to the bottom, and then we all had radios, and he was going to call us on the radio and tell us when it was our turn to go. And so he drops over, and we don't see him for a while, and we're all like, where is he, where is he? And eventually you see him, and he looks like a tiny little ant way down the bottom, and that really gave you the perspective of how big this mountain was. And then he calls the guy in front of me, and off he goes, and then the next guy goes, and then I hear on the radio, okay, Jennie, it's your turn to go. There's one guy behind me as well, and I had never been so scared in my life, but so excited at the same time. And I think that was a really obvious situation where, and people say it all the time, that fear and excitement feel very, very similar. And I was so excited to do this, but I was so scared, and I was questioning my skills, and I really had to find some calm. And I think to take a few deep breaths and believe in our skills and our training. You know, you're not going to go to the top of a big mountain unless you've built your way up in your skills at the ski resort, like I was talking about. You know, you're not going to put yourself in that situation, but believing that this was something I really wanted to do, believing that I had the skills to do it, and I had to find my courage. So taking a few deep breaths to find that calm and that courage. I heard Jerry on the radio. Okay, Jennie, dropping in 3, 2, 1. And I think that was actually a really great thing that Jerry did for me, and we can also do for ourselves when we're at that point of fear and needing to go outside our comfort zone, overcome our fear, is to count ourselves in. Mel Robbins has a 5-second rule. And
Yep.
I think this is a similar situation where you count yourself in, and then you don't give yourself a way of backing out. You just go for it. So I had all these thoughts in my head of all of the terrible things that could happen. I could crash. There could be an avalanche. I could fall in a hole. But for that moment, I found calm, and I just focused on believing and believing that this was something I really wanted to do. And I dropped in, and I remember doing a couple of turns, and then all of a sudden the snow got so deep it flew over my head, and I started tumbling. I went over the handlebars. So in fact, one of the things that I was fearful of actually happened. I started tumbling. My snowboard was too small. It was designed for mountains in Australia. I should have gotten a bigger board because the mountains were bigger in Alaska. And I was started tumbling, and when that is happening, again, that is a time to find calm, and really you just have to deal with the situation and figure it out. Now, thank you to the universe. I ended up, a snowboard doesn't come off your feet. You are strapped in. If I'd had my skis on, my skis would have been flying everywhere. I would have dropped all my gear. They call that a yard sale if you leave all your gear on the mountain. But a snowboard stays on your feet. And for some reason, I ended up, as I was tumbling, stopping that revolution, back on my snowboard, and I all of a sudden I kept riding. I was okay, and I kept riding, doing these turns. And as I got down the bottom, I saw Jerry, the guide, and the other guys. They were all cheering. Maybe that actually thought that was a trick. That was, but and as I came to a stop down with those guys, I literally just burst into tears. And being the only girl in a male dominated sports and with a bunch of guys, I was a little embarrassed, but the emotion just came out of me, and they weren't tears of sadness, they weren't tears of fear, they were tears of excitement because I had overcome this challenge and this fear that was so big, and things had gone wrong, but I'd managed to pull it off, and it was seriously an incredible experience that changed my life. It really, really changed my life. And the helicopter came and picked us up again and took us to another peak. And the next time I was still a little bit scared. But by the time we'd done, you do about 6 runs in a day. By the time I'd done this 6 times, boy, I was having a great time. And all of a sudden, my fear tolerance had definitely expanded.
What a cool story. I felt like I was on the peak of that mountain with you that entire time you were telling that. So many incredible metaphors in that story, Jennie. Like, I'm just thinking about, from the, starting all the way at the bottom and then kind of working your way up these levels, and then you get to the bigger thing and then you take on more stuff and you try something new and you expand yourself and you gain all that knowledge. And then eventually you get to your own peak, right? And when you get there, it doesn't mean that it's without fear. I mean, fear comes along. I think a lot of people talk about being fearless. I think it's about acknowledging the fear. It's a natural human response. So instead of pushing it away or making it mean something, like, let's embrace it. And so how many times are we faced with these like kind of pivotal moments in our life? A big job change or starting a new business or shifting a relationship or moving across country, or maybe you are getting into the peak of a mountain, right? I can remember something that I did that I think that you would appreciate is I went skydiving, and I had that moment when I was super pumped and I built up, right, and I got to the top, and when they flipped open that door, whew, the rush of fear that took over my body could have just stopped the whole thing, right? But I love so much that in those moments, in those like really it's facing right at you moments, just stopping for a second. We often want to push through and like do it without fear, and now there's something wrong, and it's like sometimes we just need to take a second, right? And in that second I took a big deep breath. We stepped out on that little tiny ledge, and it was one of the coolest experiences of my life, right? But in our daily lives, we're faced with those things, right? And then going down, and the worst that you thought might happen happened, right? And you work through that and you gain knowledge and you built confidence through it, and then you wanted to do it again and again. And I don't know, it's so metaphorically rich that I hope that you listening here today are seeing how this is evolving in your life, right? Like you're going through these steps and these notions, and no one is void of any of those things, right? I mean, are you seeing that too? Like even in extreme sports, but in daily life, no one is void of going through that process. We have to build. I love the word tolerance today. We're really on a roll here. We have to
Yeah.
build and expand our tolerance.
You mentioned the word fearless, and I really don't like that word,
Same.
especially in my life and the adventures that I do, because if we are fearless, if we have no fear at all, we're going to get hurt. Something's going to go wrong. We really need fear. It's actually an important part of what we do because it is a reminder, it is a natural response to tell us, hey, there's some dangers here, and you need to just stop, as you mentioned, and think about it. Think about those skills. I I am married to one of the heli-ski guides. After I did those 6 runs, I fell in love with heli-skiing. I think people do it with the skydiving too, Laura. You probably met a few people that just love that adrenaline rush so much they keep going. And so I met one of the other heli-ski guides. His name's Steve from Montana, and he's now my husband of today. We've been married for 17 years, and that one trip to Alaska to go heli-skiing ended up not being a once in a lifetime, but it's now 23 times in my life. 23 years I've been coming up here to Alaska, and I've had many situations out on the mountains where people have gotten hurt, and I have been out there and had many things go wrong. I was caught in an avalanche. I've watched people fall into crevasses, which is where the ice splits, and we've had to do rescues. And watching these heli ski guides, now they're avalanche professionals. They are doing this as a job. They are going out there and helping people like me make their dreams come true and keeping them safe. And they have a really dangerous, important job to do to make sure they are choosing the right mountain to ski and taking us down the right aspect of that mountain. And then when something goes wrong, when somebody gets hurt, I have watched them stay so calm in what is just, a worst case scenario. And I was fascinated by this of how are these guys and girls, there's some great female heli-ski guides out there too. How are they staying so calm under pressure, which is our topic today? And what it is they have practiced these things before. The first time we do things like my first heli run, wow, it was all very overwhelming. A lot of fear and a lot of tears. But as you do things more and more, we get more comfortable, more confident with them. And so these heli ski guides, they do avalanche training and they practice digging people out and probing to find people. They practice using ropes to pull people out of crevasses. And so when something does happen, if someone gets hurt, they've done all their medical training and they know what to do. So that when something happens for real, they have already practiced that a bunch of times, and then are able to stay calm in that situation. And staying calm is really important when something's going wrong and you might have clients that have never seen it before, and it's a very scary situation. And so I think we can all take a lesson from that it's really important to empower ourselves by doing some training, learning some skills, and then practicing. I mean, that's what an athlete does. They go to the gym and they train their body, and then they go out and they practice, train before their event that they are going to do. And so we can do that in all areas of life.
It's an experience unlike anything else. And I don't know. I define myself as a weird piece of furniture, right? Everybody loves it. Oh, that's so cool. It doesn't fit in their life. I don't fit in most people's lives. You found a way. I fit here.
You just heard from Chelsea, one of our beautiful founding members of the Gutsy Collective. When she joined, she was feeling isolated and unmotivated, even though her soul knew that she was ready for more. She was looking for a community space that not only helped her to grow, but embraced her as exactly who she is. No fake rah-rah stuff, no needing to have it all figured out and put together. Just real women with real conversations about real life shit. If you are nodding your head or you've got chills up your arms, then it's time for you to join us too. You can start your membership today by scrolling down and clicking on the link in the show notes or going to LauraAura.com. Absolutely. I'm kind of thinking, how do you recommend someone practices for something that they've never done before? So what I mean by that is, if we're in a situation we've never been in before, right? And we didn't know how to prepare, or, we're taking a new risk that we've not, gone down that path or that journey before. How can we practice for the situations that we don't yet know exist?
I think it's important to forecast right? We forecast weather, but I think we can also forecast how we respond to situations and being very aware in our bodies of do we go into fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn, which is the fourth one. I think it's important to let's use public speaking as our example to answer this question. Now, public speaking is one of the top three fears that we have in the world after the fear of dying and the fear of regret. A fear of speaking in public is quite a big fear for people. So if we want to become a public speaker, or we have to speak at an event, maybe you've got to speak at a wedding or speak at a funeral, then we have the chance to plan for that, and we can go and do some courses, some trainings. We can go to Toastmasters. We can sign up for a course at Mike's Job Academy and learn how to speak, and we can practice. And the more practice that we get, then we become comfortable doing that. Now, you might say, well, how do we practice, relationships, or having that hard conversation with our boss? Or how do we practice having that sort of one-off conversation? And I really believe that we should find somebody that we can talk to, that we can find trust in. This is where community and friendship comes in, and even having a really good coach or therapist that we can actually talk to and be honest about our feelings, and we can actually practice those. I was going back to Australia, and I have a relative that I've had a bit of a funky relationship, if you know what I mean. That's a nice
Yep.
way of putting it. And I was really nervous about how I was going to approach this person, especially it had been a couple of years since we'd spoken, and I really didn't know what to say. And I was able to talk with my friend about this, and we were able to discuss ways that I could handle this situation. And that was my way of practicing. So when I did go back to Australia and I had to deal with this awkward relationship conversation, I felt so much more comfortable because I had talked about it with somebody else first. And I had sort of, maybe like a pressure cooker, I'd let out the steam first with somebody that I trust. And so then when I had that conversation, I was a lot more calm under the pressure.
That's so good. Having someone to talk to, getting that out of your head and like letting those words come out of your mouth is it. I love the pressure cooker. That's such a perfect example. It just lets that pressure out, right? It lets the steam out. It lets all the what ifs and well, how am I going to say this? And how would I approach this? Sometimes you just got to work it out, and if you don't readily have someone to talk to yourself. Jenny, I don't know about you, but I talk to myself all the time.
I do too, Laura. People might think we're crazy talking to ourselves, but I am
Hey,
such a believer in being our own best friends, and being able to
yes.
talk ourselves through things, because sometimes you are on your own.
Yeah. And I don't know, I often find that it's way less big than I thought it was when I say it out loud, right? In my brain, it feels like one of your glaciers, right? But when I say it out loud, it's like the ice cubes that just came out of my refrigerator. It's just not as big, and it's not as scary as I thought it would be. And that's, sometimes things are big and scary, and rightfully so, right? We are not we're not void of that in our life. But more often than not, that stuff that I think is big, it's really not. It's really not. But my mind has created something way bigger than I thought. So I'm kind of curious, what do you recommend in how we creating calmness when our minds are loud, right? When you're standing in those moments where you're about to step into something, or things are feeling a lot of pressure, like, and your mind is going 100 miles an hour, and you're overthinking and you're worrying. How do we start to bring some calm to a busy mind?
We have to let the hamster out into the backyard, Laura.
Okay.
If we have that hamster on the wheel running around in circles inside our head, it is seriously just going round and round in circle. And it is very difficult to find an out, which is what we think we're doing. We're trying to find a solution to the problem. And I think that if we can let it out, like you said, say it out loud, share it with somebody. I love having a coach or having a group to discuss something with and letting that out, and then having a bunch of other people saying, me too. Me too. I feel you. It makes us feel like we're not the only one that have been through it, and we can hear stories of other people that have been through it and how they found the solution as well. But I think it's so important to talk about it. Talk it to yourself, talk to friends and family, let that hamster out, let it run around.
I love that. Let the hamster out into the backyard. That's the best way forward. And I'm also thinking physically, you mentioned, when you kind of get to that moment and you're like, whoo, it kind of hits you, right? Sometimes there's a moment of peace. Sometimes there's just a moment of awe. But often there's also a moment of shit. Oh shit. What have I done? I don't know what I'm doing. And that fear starts to get loud. And then we have a physical response. You talked about the fight or flight or freeze and fawn and all that stuff. What are some things that you recommend that we can help ourselves with physically to create some calm so that you can get more grounded in that space?
What a great question, because our bodies really do have a physical response to those fears and those stresses. And we may not even be aware of them. And I think it's so important for us to be body aware and really listening to our intuition, listening to our body. In fact, I'll share something I haven't shared before, Laura. I was telling you the story about going to Australia and planning on having this conversation. And this was quite stressful for me. And although I feel like I talked about it with somebody, I went and dealt with it the best I could, all of a sudden I started getting a sore jaw. I started getting some headaches, and I actually went through a bunch of medical tests trying to figure out what these headaches were from. But it really wasn't until I went to the dentist that he said, wow, you are clenching your teeth at night. I went, well, yeah, I wake up in the morning and my jaw is sore. And we discovered that that was actually my body's response to stress. Although I had been working really hard on my mindset and I felt like I was doing all the right things for myself to overcome those stresses and those fears and having that difficult conversation, my body was still responding in a way that I couldn't control. My teeth were clenching at night and it was giving me physical problems. I've had in the past, I've had stomach aches when I've gotten stress. And these are signs that I think we can first of all go, oh my goodness, there's something terrible wrong, and we go off and see our doctors and we try to find medical reasons. But once you eliminate all of those medical reasons, you come back to the, wow, this is a stress response. And once we get to that point where we know it's a stress response, if my jaw starts hurting, I'm like, wow, what am I stressed about that I'm ignoring, that I'm unaware of? When if I get a stomach ache, the same thing. And so really becoming aware of what our own personal bodies do when we feel stressed, then we can start to actually figure out what those stresses are, and then I find that those physical actual responses do start to dissipate, because we can really ignore and maybe that's part of the freeze situations. You freeze, you stop, and we can just ignore it. Oh, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to forget about that. If I forget about it, it will go away, and it just doesn't. And so I think it comes down to having somebody to talk to And in some situations, it's better to have somebody, having a coach. I know, Laura, you're doing some great work coaching people through a lot of these situations so that we can then move forward. Is that making some sense?
It makes so much sense. Our bodies, I mean, there's a famous book for a reason. The body keeps the score. Our bodies have memory. And to your point, whatever we're ignoring, we're storing, right? And the longer that goes on, the more profound it gets, the more things start to ache, the more things feel off. There's no explanation. All the tests are coming back normal, and we have to ask ourselves, like, what am I not dealing with? What have I not processed? What am I resisting? You know? And when we start to really acknowledge those things, sometimes it's as simple as feeling your own feelings. You mentioned crying in front of a group of men, and I'm 110% for that, right? Because also men have emotions and we need to celebrate them expressing it as well, right? So I think that that's something really cool that women do, is express emotion. And I think
Yep.
that men can learn from that and take some inspiration from that. But you allowed yourself to express that emotion in that moment. And while that was a great emotion, it's still a physical release.
Yes.
Had you pent that up, I mean, I think that I'm not a doctor, okay, so preface that, but I think that not even expressing that huge joy, that huge relief, you would also store as well, because your body wanted to feel that moment in its entirety, not just, oh, well, that was great, let's go on to the next one.
That's exactly right. You're very intuitive to that.
Our bodies are so cool. I could nerd out on that stuff all day long. There's one last thing that I wanted to go over, and I'm fascinated by. You have what's called the fear formula. So I
Yeah.
was curious if you'd be willing to kind of walk us through what that is and how to use it.
Well, great question. And I love sharing this with people. And in fact, I've already talked about it a little bit. If we look at the word fear, FEAR, I've already mentioned that forecasting, which is the F in fear, forecasting is the first step. And that's something that we do with weather all the time. If we do the forecasting and we forecast that it's going to be raining in the afternoon, we can bring an umbrella and we can be ready. Well, we can do that also with our life. We can forecast how we're going to feel. We can forecast when are we going to be fearful, when are we going to get stressed in a situation, where are we a little bit out of our comfort zone. And if we can forecast that, we can better prepare ourselves for it. And that's where the E comes into plan. That E stands for educate. Educate. And when we educate ourselves, it empowers us. Another fantastic E. And that's where we can go off and do some training. There's courses on everything these days. You can get free courses online for anything that you want to learn. And by learning, continual learning in life, that is building our knowledge. And building our knowledge gives us confidence and skills to then be able to overcome those things that we need to do. And whether that's building our knowledge by doing a course or practicing or even just talking about it, that is going to empower us to be able to get through that situation. Now, the A in fear. A for me stands for adapt. Adapting our mindset. People talk about mindset a lot these days, and a lot of people think that there's just a negative and a positive mindset. But there's so many different mindsets, and once we have that sort of mindset to figure out what sort of mindset do we need, we can choose a mindset for that situation. One of my favorites is the MacGyver mindset. I love this. If you have a problem and you want to solve it, you need to embrace the MacGyver mindset, because MacGyver can fix anything. And so this was something I learned when I was young. My brother actually got cancer when he was 9, and this was one of the first traumatic events in my childhood and a very fearful situation. My brother got cancer. He had a very small chance of survival, and we were told that he was going to have his leg amputated. And he was only
Wow.
9 years old. I was 11. And we really didn't know how this was going to look in life. And I told you my parents had a sports store. And so once my brother was sort of cleared of the cancer and he had an artificial leg, but he hated wearing it. It was very awkward. It used to rub. His stump was very, very small. And so he liked to just do things on crutches, do everything on one leg. And whenever a new sport came into the store, we would have to figure out how he could do it. It became a bit of a game, a fun game, and we would get our MacGyver mindset on. So when the family got into windsurfing, we went down to the leg factory and we had him the guy that makes artificial limbs make him a peg leg out of PVC pipe with a sanding disc on the bottom so that it was waterproof and he could windsurf. And boy, my brother was a great windsurfer using this peg leg. And when Michael wanted to learn how to rollerblade, I was a couple of years older and I was the skater in the family. I'd grown up figure skating and I loved rollerblading. And so I remember teaching my brother to rollerblade, and we weren't sure how it was going to work. So I just took one of my skates off and grabbed a spare set of crutches, and we were rollerblading around pushing with the crutches and having a great time giggling away. And then we started playing rollerblade hockey. And how was Michael going to hold a hockey stick to get the puck down and do the slap shots? And we figured out that we could get the end of a hockey stick that normally went into an aluminium shaft, and we could get that end, and we attached it to the bottom of his crutches with a piece of rope that went up to the handle so he could lift it up when he was pushing, and then when he got the puck, he would let go of the rope and the hockey end would go down so that he could get the puck. And when he wanted to do a slap shot, he would swing up on his crutches and use his leg to kick the back of the hockey stick in order to do a slap shot. I mean,
Amazing. Oh,
I mean, this was the MacGyver mindset in its infancy for my brother and I, figuring out how we could do stuff. And I believe that type of mindset has really been something that I've used my whole life now. In fact, when something breaks in the family, it's not my husband that wants to fix it, it's me. It's like, yay, something's broken. I get to figure out how to fix it. And especially when you're in the mountains and you've only got duct tape and zip ties and, and that sort of thing. And I think the reason why I love the MacGyver mindset is because it feels so good when you fix something. There's people out there that are problem finders, and a problem finder mindset is somebody that finds the problem and all they do is whine about it and, oh my gosh, it's terrible, it's broken, this is such a problem, and they talk about the problem. And then there's the problem solver. And the problem solver MacGyver mindset is that person that gets excited about something breaking and the challenge and gets to go out and fix it because it feels so good.
amazing. Oh, amazing. So that was that was the A with adaptability, correct?
Yeah, adaptability, adapting whatever mindset you need to overcome the challenge, right? And then R in fear stands for repeat. And I've already talked about this a little bit. The first time you do something is going to be the hardest. That's going to be the time where you really need to find calm and find your courage to do it for the first time. And then once you've done it once, now you need to repeat it. Because as I found out doing those heli-ski runs, by the time I'd repeated that 6 times, the fear turned into fun. And if we can practice and train and repeat something over and over again, like if we're a public speaker, practicing our keynote speech, practicing what we're going to say, the more that we do that, the more that we are ready to do it when we need to, and do it the best that we can.
Oh, such a great tool and beautiful, simple reminder that we are way more capable than what we give ourselves credit for sometimes. AdrenaJen, I got to make sure everybody knows where to find you because your energy and enthusiasm is just contagious in the best of ways. So where can everyone find and connect with you online?
Well, please reach out to me. I love chatting with people and seeing messages come up. So you can find me at AdrenaJen on Instagram, AdrenaJen on Facebook. I've got a website, AdrenaJen.com. So if you just look up AdrenaJen, in fact, I Googled myself the other day, which was kind of fun. I put in AdrenaJen into Google and you will find podcasts that I've been on. You will see some great stories in some blogs, and you will see what I'm up to. But I would love to help anyone out there that needs some help with overcoming fears and finding courage and finding that calm if you're under pressure in life. That is something I've been practicing for a long time, and I love sharing that with others.
We'll make sure we link all of that wonderfulness in the show notes. And I've got to know, what does gutsy mean to you?
Oh, what a great word. Gutsy is just a badass way of saying courage. Really? It really is. What a great word, because we need to find courage, but to find courage, we need to be gutsy. And gutsy means taking that next step in whatever journey you are on.
You know, something really interesting about being able to really ground into a moment, especially when things are going a little bit all over the place, is the confidence boost that you get from being present, from grounding, from using your breath, using your tools and techniques that you have. Gosh, when you do that and then things settle down and you look back and you're like, damn, I did that, your confidence just skyrockets and it's an incredible feeling. And the coolest part about that is you have the ability. It's not about being perfect all the time. It's definitely a practice, but the ability is always within you. I'd love to get to know you more. So come find me on social media. I am at that LauraAura across all the platforms. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.